Okay, I'm back into Maya and we're going to start creating our abstract sculpture. Um, and you can call it assemblage as well. So we're going to assemble our sculpt and we're going to be using our create tools. Now, there's a couple tools that I want to show you today that can come really in handy when you start creating your sculpt. So again, it could be abstract, or it needs to be abstract, and it could be not anything that represents anything like you know um, like a car or anything mechanical. It needs to be completely abstract. So we can use polygon primitives for that. And again, if you click on the sides here, you can get more options to that. So if you wanted to add, make it a little bit larger, I could just add 2 here. So you can actually make any changes that you want to it to start with here, along with any divisions there. But you don't have to worry too much about that. We'll be diving into that later on. I'm going to go ahead and create. And so for this assignment, you can just start building your sculpture just by setting them down. Okay, so I'm going to start with using perhaps and making a base for my sculpture. And I wanted to show you a couple of tools before we kind of dive in and start kind of assembling this. There's 2 ways to do this. So if you wanted to, and if I wanted to use a different or another cube here to kind of build my my abstract sculpture, what I want to do is I want to drop in another one. So I could essentially just go up here and drop in another cube, and there it is. It always drops into the 0, 0 coordinates of my scene. So then I can reposition that and start kind of building my sculpt. Okay, so maybe I have a little bit of rotation here on it. I can click the R for scale and scale that up and down, and even make it a little bit thinner or larger. So really whatever you wanted to do here. And then again, I could just kind of glue it together. Now again, to dolly around your scene, you want to hold down Command and your left key and kind of just make sure that everything's kind of glued together there. One quick tool to use, and as a review here, actually not a review, but something new, is that you can duplicate this. So instead of me creating another block, say I want to keep this shape, I can do a Alt or Command D on your keyboard, and that will add another another cube here with the same translations that I just applied. And you can see here in your outliner, and this is why it's so important to have this tool, is that you can see that I have cube 1, cube 2, and cube 3. So if I select cube 3, that's the one I just duplicated. So now I could just move that out, and I've got 3. So that's a really quick way to duplicate your object. Now another way, again, you can reach that is go to Create, or I'm sorry, Edit, and Duplicate. And here you can find your shortcut. I'm using a Mac, so it says Command on there, but if you're using a PC, it's Alt-D. So again, if I click this under the Edit tool, it will duplicate that, and now I have 4 cubes, and I could just pull that out, perhaps rotate that. So I can keep using this tool and duplicate this as many times as I need. Okay, so I need to show you a couple of tools here. You can see here that I've got some cubes in here. And again, you can start building your sculpture this way, making sure that everything's kind of glued together here. I can add different, oops, again, I'm just kind of rotating that and moving it around. There's kind of going to be what the base of my abstract sculpture is. And again, I want to make sure that these are touching each other. In other words, I want them to make sure that those are glued together. Nothing's floating. They are physically part of the sculpture. So that's the base of my sculpture. Now I can actually add different shapes here. I can perhaps put in a torus. So here I am in my poly modeling shelf. And again, if you're anywhere else here, there's a lot of tabs here in your shelf. I'm going to tab back to my poly modeling and then add a torus. So there's my torus. Again, it drops in at the 0, 0 coordinates of that. And I'm going to go to the attribute editor with my torus. And I'm going to go to the poly torus 1 tab over here. This is the shape. So there's several different attributes to this, but I want to make sure that I have the poly torus shape. This is where you can find the name. You can actually rename this if you'd like to. But here what I want to work with is the polytorus history. Again, if that's not expanded, make sure that it is, and you'll reach the radius. I want to click and drag over the radius here and just kind of make that larger for the radius. You can see that it's thinned out. It's not so much like a donut now. If I bring it down, you'll see that it's kind of a fat donut there, but I want this radius to be a little bit thinner, so perhaps like that. And now I'm going to hit W and move that up a little bit, and then I definitely want to scale that down to fit a little bit better with what I have going on here. So again, it could be anything you want it to be. It is, after all, going to be an abstract. I'm going to go ahead and rotate that around and maybe make that a little bit smaller as well. So again, it's glued together. And I'm going to rotate that around this way. And maybe the radius does need to be a little bit smaller. Section radius here as well. Maybe a little bit fatter there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. So Command or Control D. You can see here that I've added another torus. So I've got 2 toruses. And I'm going to rotate that around. And maybe make that a little bit larger. And I'm going to rotate it this way a little bit. And now I want to apply, make sure that you hit your W when you're done duplicating and translating this on your duplicate of that torus. And then you could do the Shift D as many times as you want. And you can see that I'm just hitting Shift D. And now it's kind of creating as many as I want, a little bit too many. But I can delete them if I don't want too many of those. Let's go around here. Oh, that's big, huh? Now, you can see how fun it could be. I actually went from a small sphere to a larger sphere as I did my duplicate special. But you could always do it the other way around. I can start large and go big. So let's try that again. I'm going to do a few Control Z's and just get back to my original torus in there. And I'm going to make that a little bit larger. And it looks like I had a torus in there, so there's my number 1 torus. Let me go ahead and scoot that down some. And so a lot of times, maybe, you know, again, this is my base, and I need to make that a little bit larger. But I don't want to grab each one and move them and have to position them where they are. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to show you how to group something. In your outliner, you can see that I can select all my cubes. So if I click on one, you can click on and select whatever one you want, but I want to group these. So I'm going to hold down my shift, select the first cube over here, and then select the last cube. So I've got 4 cubes in there in all. I'm going to select all of them. And then you can go up to Edit Group, and that will group those cubes for you. And what I could do here is I can actually name this my base and just put cubes. And it's a good idea to use an underscore. It'll actually create it there for you, but base cubes, okay, that's my base of my sculpture, and that's fine. Now I'm going to undo that because there's another way to be able to kind of group these together. So they're called a hierarchy. So what we could do is actually make one of these cubes a hierarchy of all of these. So a parent to the child's or the children here. So a parent and child relationship for this. So I'm going to grab the first cube, and I'm going to just add a name of base cube. There it is. Okay, you'll see that it actually automatically added a little underscore for me if I didn't add it. So you don't have to take the time to add the underscore, it will do it for you. So this is going to be my base cube, and then any other cubes that I have in there will be under this parent one. So a hierarchy of that. So I've clicked and held down Shift to select the rest of my cubes, and what I want to do is I want to drop those into the base. So what I want to do here is I'm going to hold down my middle scroll button while holding down Command, and then I'm just going to click and drag. When it turns white or have those little white dots around the word, you could just release the middle mouse button there. So that's one way of kind of making that the hierarchy. Okay. Now the advantage to this is that eventually I want to group my entire sculpture. So the hierarchy for anything inside of your sculpture that you want to remain a group would be a good idea.